So I started off with a delay. I was still driving back from work. My mom texts me. She says, "How? What's going on with Julius?" Then I go, "How? What did he say?" She says, "No, he's saying that Mkhwanazi must stop because things are not proper."
Okay.
So she didn't elaborate. Then I was like, okay. When I get home and I watch the clip, Julius Malema'S saying, "Look, it's not proper that we just start off here with a supplementary testimony where there's been no initial testimony. The only testimony that we have is from the commission, Yaramadla. That has nothing to do with Parliament. And so if you're going to establish anything, we need to have a founding testimony here in Parliament under oath, and that should be the departure point." He was correct about that, actually. And I think all the members of Parliament eventually agreed. They took a recess for hours, got their documents in order. Apparently some documents are not signed off, so they did all of that. Now, when they do start, obviously Mkhwanazi leads the general evidence that we are all aware of. He first spoke about on the 6th of July, 2025. Then he's gone to the commission as well and led that evidence. But there was more detail this time that I found interesting. And it leads us to what we need to look at, because essentially the nub of the issue is not necessarily just policing in South Africa, general policing. It's also got to do with the security cluster in its entirety. So, as general citizens, we may not be aware, but there actually is an intelligence cluster which is involved with gathering intelligence and covert missions. Missions that are not spoken about, top secrets. He spoke about clearance, right? And the highest security clearance, for example, is top secret. So you can get confidential information, and then it goes higher and higher and higher. And the reason why we need to make a distinction between the two is because, for example, if a cop is investigating Slew, they may call Slew in to get a testimony from Slew. Slew may get to answer for herself where she was on such and such a date. Generally, with that kind of investigation, you know you are being investigated, right? However, when it comes to security intelligence, because it's a covert mission, you may not be aware that you're being investigated.
True.
And in fact, there's a couple of things, like how you gather evidence is also very, very important. Because if you're gathering evidence for the purposes of a conviction in court, then you need to gather that evidence in a legal manner. In other words, if you're going to go and search my house, you need a warrant. If you're going to tap my phone, you need to go to a magistrate to sign that off, etc. and so on. However, in intelligence, it doesn't always work that way, because they're not necessarily gathering evidence for the purposes of a conviction. They're gathering evidence for them to map out what it is that's going on. Now, this kind of came up yesterday, because when they were speaking about Diane Collar Barnard specifically, Mkhwanazi then said, well, if you dispute what it is that I'm saying, and all he alleged was that she has now leaked top secret information to the general public. And he cited 3 interviews. So there, it was like, okay, cool, we get it. There's not much more evidence needed. But then he said, if anybody else goes to the press and tries to dispute these allegations, I will come back with more evidence. Then the evidence leader asked a very important question. He said, was this evidence gathered legally? And Mkhwanazi didn't answer that, actually. What he then did was he went on to explain the 2 ways in which they can gather evidence. So he said, for example, again, let's say we're arresting Mpho, and we take Mpho's phone. I guess I can ask Mpho, do I have permission to go into your phone? If Mpho says yes, then we go into the phone, right? Now, if you look at all the things that have come out regarding Ket Matala, right? And the other Madala that was arrested, I forget his name.
Katie Molefe.
Yeah, Katie Molefe. I don't know, but I can't imagine those guys would have agreed and given them consent to go through their phone for them to download those WhatsApp messages. So now the only logical assumption is that this evidence maybe came through from intelligence. Again, he couldn't confirm that because that would be top secret. Now you've got to look at yourself and go, okay, there's going to be 2 things here. We as the general public We watching, thinking, hey, there's going to be convictions. There may not be convictions because the evidence may not be admissible in court.
Mm-hmm.
But for the purposes of what Mkhwanazi is doing, his evidence is enough. Because again, I go to Mbali, and Mbali, I hear Mbali saying, I am plotting to kill Sizwe, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then I secretly record that. I can't use that in court. But now I know that she's trying to kill me. You see? So, for the purposes of knowledge, it's helpful. But for the purposes of a conviction, it's not. This is where we are now. And I know this is kind of difficult for the layman to discern between the two. Because people are like, Sizwe, what are you doing? They're fighting criminals either way. And you are correct. They are fighting criminals. But there's different levels of criminality. You see? Like if, for example, there's a terrorism threat, then all those rights to privacy that ordinary citizens have fall away.
True.
So, it's really, really complex, this thing. And you can see why even prosecutors who try to prosecute cases, when they're handed dockets over and they find that majority of the evidence that has been gathered is inadmissible, they don't have anything to charge a person with.
Yeah.
Even though they can see right there with this English. Baningi abantu who are being paraded in court right now, abayophuma scot-free.
Here's the thing, right?
Yeah.
I hear exactly what you're saying, but I feel like in light of all the commissions that we've had over the years in this country, where there was probably evidence that was admissible, but no convictions, no arrests, no nothing. It's like, for me, it doesn't matter.
First of all,
I hear what you're saying.
You must look at what these guys said before the commissions even commenced. Guys, this thing is not binding.
You see.
Because my eyes with you is a shit.
Yeah.
It's not binding.
Yeah.
Because they don't know what's going to come out.
So then what are we doing? Just letting the public know?
Hey, man.
FYI. Yeah.
Mina, the only commission I've ever understood was the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
Yes.
I used to watch it with my dad.
That was important.
Yes. Because really, the objective was for us to heal as a nation.
Yeah.
People whose bodies had not been discovered, your brother's been missing for 20 years, you at least know where he was buried, you get closure.
Yes.
You see?
Yes.
I understood that one.
That's what I'm saying. It's like a big fat FYI.
Yeah, it's quite a tricky one, right? Even you, Sizwe, as you're mentioning the issue around evidence, and even when Mkhwanazi was really questioned around the evidence and him dilly-dallying and going and beating around the bush, it really questions in terms of, will the public get their answers and will they get the convictions that they really need? So yet again, the public was skeptical around this commission because they've said we've seen so many commissions, but really no action. And all of these court cases we are seeing now, question is, will that evidence count like you're saying? I don't know. It's tricky.
As a public, you are likely to be disappointed in Ngelunjela manje. But again, at least we'll know what's going on in the country.
How many things do we know that are happening in this country?
Hey?
Some of them you sit back and you're like, okay, so I know that Sizwe is corrupt, and then what?
Because you guys don't have top secret clearance. Do you have top secret clearance, la?
No.
So manje, you don't need because I can't help you.
Hey, nimzwile Mkhwanazi uthini. Magachi, this is the tip of the iceberg. There is so much that the crime intelligence of this country knows and is keeping away from the public. There's a lot, Bafit. Uzewati, the country will burn.